Shalom to my brothers and sisters in the body of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach and to the scattered Hebrew Israelites who are throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom. Today I bring you a very important word today because it still pertains to another holy day within the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For we had learned from part 1 and part 2 that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a total for 8 days. And that the feast begins from Abib 14th and ends on Abib the 21st. So the title of this word is Abib the 16th, April the 12th to April the 13th, sundown to sundown. The sheaf weight offering is the Messiah, the second Adam. And the subtitle of this video shall be The sheaf of the first fruits of the body harvest represents the firstborn of the resurrection. Now, this is going to be a deep lesson. I highly recommend that you get your pencil and paper and make time for this study. And if you don't understand something, my brothers and sisters, remember, the Messiah told us we can ask Yahuwah in the name of Yahuswshua HaMashiyach, and Yahuwah shall give us understanding. As long as we draw nigh unto Yahuwah, he will draw nigh to us. As long as your heart is right with Yahuwah, he will give you more. So remember that. But for those who have a deep relationship, and I'm really talking to the Messianic Nazarenes. In the Hebrew, you are called Mashiachim Natsrim. For those who have a deeper relationship with Yahuwah through the Messiah, you should be able to understand these deeper mysteries. But if not, ask the Father in his Son's name. Now, Mashiach Nazarenes are followers of the Messiah, and they are fulfilling their spiritual Nazariteship. Okay? Now, here's some questions to ponder on, and I really want you to think about this, my brothers and sisters. What does the first fruits have to do with firstborn? What does harvest has to do with the resurrection and regeneration? Who is the firstborn? Who is the first fruits? And what is the harvest? And this question I really want you to think about, because a lot of people have not taken the time to really meditate on this and to get the understanding from Yahuwah. Why is the Messiah the last Adam? Okay. Now, for those who have been reading the King James 1611, you will learn that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is one of the 3 solemn feasts that deals with feasting and harvesting. Again, Yahuwah speaks. He gives us a carnal representation to understand spiritual things that has happened and the things that are yet to come. So are you ready to eat, my brothers and sisters? Let us begin. In the video description box, Yahuwah gave us a prophetic message last year to confirm to us what season we are in. And yes, the Messiah is coming back. I highly recommend all Hebrew Israelites to watch the first video, because that message is directly to you. And the second message in the playlist is directed to Hebrew Israelites and Gentiles. Okay? And those who make negative comments to that video, be careful. I'm warning you. Be careful what you say, for you shall be judged. Now, today's date of me doing this video is April the 13th, 2017 AD. And it's Thursday, and we're in the daylight phase of the day. And we are in the 7th day from Adam and the 12th day from creation. So far, what the Most High has shown me, We are in the 7,485th year. When we convert that into Beta Israel / Kushta time, you will get 7,088 years. When you convert it to the synagogue of Satan time, who are the Jewish people, for they are the sons of Esau and the sons of Japheth, you would get 5,777 years. And the reason why their time is lower is because they don't believe in the Messiah. Now, the calendar event that we should talk about will pertain to the third week of the moon. I highly recommend in your spare time that you watch this video, because in this video, we're not going to go in great details about the calendar, and it's going to be a lot more advanced. So to understand the Most High calendar, you can watch Israelites New Year, Abib New Moon, Sun 365, Moon 354, and Prophecy Fulfilled, Israel, No New Moon Crescent. In that video, you will see that the heavens are manifesting themselves to us and letting us know that the Hebrew Israelites are not in the Holy Land. Also, the heavens is confirming Yahuwah prophetic message. Please go to the video description box or click on that little eye that you see in that video. In this video, to get access to those videos. Okay. So when we look at Yahuwah's calendar, and Yahuwah's calendar is lunar, solar, and Maseroth, okay? We are in the third week of the moon, and it's very important that you start keeping a record of things that happen throughout the year. For what we saw on Abib 14th, which is a full moon day, and that was Passover, that was the day when Jupiter and Spica appear next to the moon. That's very important. It's a sign, okay? Again, check the video description box for other videos so you can get understanding of what I'm mentioning to you in this video, because we're going to be focusing on Abib 16th, okay? For on Abib 16th, I'm going to bring this up now. That is the day when my ancestor brought the sheaf weight offering to the high priest. Also, Abib 16 is the day when the Messiah was resurrected from the grave. This is very important. Again, offerings, holy days relates to the Messiah and what is yet to come. Okay? And this is so important that we know that the sheaf weight offering is on Abib 16. It is confirmed by the work of Josephus and by many other biblical sources that this is the day when we bring this offering. Okay? And the reason why it's so important to know this, because if you don't know this, you would improperly count for your Pentecost. Okay? Because when you read Leviticus chapter 23, verse 15 to 22, you will learn that the formula to count for your Pentecost consists of counting 7 complete Sabbaths and 50 days. I'm going to say this again. Counting 7 complete Sabbaths and 50 days. For any farmer would tell you that wheat is only ripe in the summertime. Okay? So if you hold this feast not in its correct season, you will be going against the commandments of Yahuwah. All right? When you for any videos that is done on our channel, I'm asking my brothers and sisters to always please check the video description box, because there the sources are listed, and to have access, let me go back up, or to have access to this calendar that you see here so you can compare your results, okay, or to print it out, okay, check the video description box, and there's a link there you can click on. For I will be adding this number, okay, to it. It's dealing with the moon total days from dealing with these 2-year periods, the year 2015 to 2016 and the year 2016 to 2017. Because those who have understanding the Most High calendar know that the moon does get behind the sun. Okay? So far we have a total of 22 whole calendar days that the moon is behind the sun. And the actual time of that is 21 days, 1 hour, and 38 minutes. This is very important to know because if you're not keeping a record of the Most High calendar, you will not understand first and second Enoch writings. Now I'm going to repeat this again. If you're not keeping a record of the Most High calendar, you will not understand first and second Enoch writings. Okay? Now we're going to go to a video so we can understand what is dawn. Okay? I know you're probably thinking, I thought she said she's not going to go in details about the calendar. No. The reason why I'm going to play a video that's dealing so you can have an understanding the difference between dawn and sunrise, because we shall read Mark chapter 16, verse 1 through 2 in the King James 1611. Okay? So let us go to this video here. And all praise to the Most High. There's not many videos that really show a great detail of you seeing the night transitioning into the daylight. But this is a good video here to give you understanding of the difference between dawn and sunrise. Because let me pull the definition for dawn. When you understand what dawn means, then you will understand Mark chapter 16, verse 1 to 2. So the definition of dawn is the first appearance of light in the sky before sunrise. I'm going to read this again. The first appearance of light in the sky before sunrise. This is very important to know. So I'm going to start playing this video. And let me scroll down so you can see where this video come from. Take this time to pause your screen to get this information. Okay. And as this video is playing, I want you to open your Bibles up to Mark chapter 16. Now, those who have a copy of the 1611 Bible, we're going to read the summary first, and then those two verses. And as this video is playing, notice that you see nothing but light. Nothing but light. Okay? An angel declared the resurrection of the Messiah to 3 women. The Messiah himself appeared to Mary Magdalene, to going into the country, then to the apostles, whom he sent forth to preach the gospel, and ascended into heaven. Mark chapter 16, verse 1 through 2. And when the Sabbath day was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome had brought sweet spices, that they might come and anoint him. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. Now the precept for verse 2 are Luke chapter 24, verse 1, and John chapter 20, verse 1. As you can see here, you see in this area here how bright this light is becoming. So we get an idea where the sun is rising, okay? Now when we look at Mark chapter 16, verse 1, they actually use the word Sabbath, Sabbath. So this is letting you know that the Sabbath was past. The Sabbath was complete. The week was complete, okay? And Mary Magdalene and the other 2 women came to the Messiah tomb on the first day of the week. This is very important to know, because that first day of the week when they came to his tomb was the big 16th, my brothers and sisters. And in verse 2 is letting you know that they did not get to his tomb until at the rising of the sun. This is very important to know. Are you listening? They did not get to the Messiah tomb until the rising of the sun. And the reason why I'm bringing this out, because we have a lot of false shepherds feeding you false doctrines. For they're not understanding Yahuwah's calendar. They are trying to place these biblical events onto the Gregorian calendar, which is the heathen's calendar. You cannot do that. This is why the heathens think that this took place on Sunday. It did not. It took place on Abib 16th. For when you read all 4 books of the gospel, and I do want to mention here, so you see how you can see the sun over here in this area, okay? It's still rising. Keep your eye on that area. Let me play this again from the beginning so you can see. But in this verse here, and when you read the other books of the gospel, you will learn that the Messiah was crucified on the 14th and he was resurrected on Abib 16th. This is why the Gentiles do not understand the calendar events, and they're trying to put it on a heathen pagan calendar, on a heathen weekly format, and it's not going to work. Okay? So let us go to this picture now that I'm about to take you to. Now, when this picture was done, forgive me because, like I said, as the Most High began to show me things, this is why, as the Most High began to show me things, forgive me. When you have a relationship with the Most High, He begins to show you things. And a lot of time, it's not all given at one time. It's given at the appointed times. So this is why you see the title of the calendar saying lunar-solar calendar, where the correction should be Yahuwah's calendar, lunar, solar, and Maseroth. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go into details in this photo because there's videos for that will be placed in the description box. But we're going to be mostly focused on the first day of the week, as mentioned in Mark chapter 16. And that first day of the week is Abib 16th. Okay? And it's the third day pertaining to the Feast of Unleavened Bread. For we learned in part 1 and part 2 that the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread was Passover. Okay? Now, in Mark chapter 16, we learned that the Messiah risen in the dawn phase. He risen before Mary and them got to his tomb. This is very important to know. All right? So take this time now to pause the screen so you can observe this picture. And also read Matthew chapter 12, verse 40 with the precept Jonah chapter 1, verse 17. Okay? Now take this time to pause your screen to get the rest of this part of the photo, because now we will begin to get the understanding, how do the sheaf weight offering represent the Messiah, the second Adam, right? Okay. Now, many do not know this. Why the Messiah was in Sheol for 3 days, that he was sent there to set the captives free. Now, to understand that mystery, you need to read these following verses and book, which is Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, and the precept is Jonah chapter 1, verse 17, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 8 through 9, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18 to 20, and Psalms chapter 68, verse 18, and the book of Nicodemus link will be listed in the video description box. Now, to get a more understanding of the photo I just showed to you, you will have to watch these 3 videos, which are Sabbaton, the King James 1611 Almanac, and the death and resurrection of Yahushua. You have to watch that to get a full understanding of this photo that I showed to you. Now let's go to the word. Now, Yahuwah always gives us a carnal representation to understand the spiritual. So now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 16, and we're going to read verse 31 to 30 to get an understanding about the sheaf weight offering. Okay? Exodus chapter 16, the summary. The Israelites comes to sin. They murmur for the want of bread. Yahuwah is promising bread from heaven. Quails are sent, and manna. The ordering of manna. It was not to be found on the Sabbath, an omer of it is preserved. So I know you're thinking, what did this have to do with the sheep weight offering? Well, as we read these verses below, we will see how it relates to it. Let's go to verse 31. And the house of Israel called the name thereof Manna, and it was like a coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So in this first verse here, we get a description of what the manna looks like. It looks like coriander seed, and the manna was white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Now, I'm going to take you to Numbers chapter 11 so we can get a further insight about this manna. Okay? So let's go to Numbers chapter 11. We can read the summary first. The burning of Taberah quenched by Moses' prayer. The people lust for flesh and loath manna. Moses complaineth of his charge. Yahuwah divideth his burden unto 70 elders. Quails are given in wrath at Kibroth Hattaavah. Okay, so then we'll go to verse 7. So we get more understanding about this manna. Verse 7. And the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof as the color of bdellium. And I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly, so I looked it up, my brothers and sisters.
Bdellium.
That's how it's pronounced, bdellium. Because my tongue is terrible when it comes to pronounce certain words. Okay? Now, when it said the color thereof as the color of bdellium, it's talking about the inner part of the manna. What does it look like on the inside? For in the Hebrew, it would say the eye of it as the eye of. Okay? And the precept for verse 7 is Exodus chapter 16, verse 14, and the verse 31. Okay? So I'm going to take you to a photo to get an idea about this manna, what it looks like. Okay? So here we have a picture of the coriander seeds right here. And we have a picture of bdellium. So we've just learned from Exodus 16 and Numbers 11 that the manna is white, and that it on the outside is white, and it looks like coriander seeds. And when you look in the inside of the manna, it looks like this bdellium that you see here. Okay, let us continue to read. Numbers chapter 11, verse 8. And the people went about and gathered it, and grinded it in mills, or beat it in a mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. So we just learned something here. You want to highlight this verse. So now we see how my people used the manna and how they made it into the wafers. Okay. We also get a further understanding of what it tastes like. Okay. So it said it tastes like fresh oil. And then verse 9, it said that when the dew fell upon the earth, it fell at night, right? And the manna fell upon it. You definitely want to highlight that verse. Okay? So when the dew fell first, then the manna fell upon the dew. Now let us go back to Exodus chapter 16. Verse 32. And Moses said, this is the thing which Yahuwah commanded. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said unto Aaron, take a pot, and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it before Yahuwah to be kept for your generations. So as you can see here, the Most High always make the children of Israel to do something carnal so they will not forget and so they can remember. Now you want to pay close attention to this word omer, because you're going to see it again when we go to Leviticus chapter 23 as we begin to get an understanding of the sheaf weight offering. Okay? So what my ancestors did, they kept an omer of the manna, okay, to be remembered. So when our children see the omer, they will remember what bread that Yahuwah fed to my ancestors when they was in the wilderness. Now let's continue to read. Verse 34. And Yahuwah commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. Now the testimony is the covenant, and the covenant is kept in the ark. So Aaron laid the manna, laid the omer of the manna before the testimony, which was the covenant. Okay? And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now, omer is the 10th part of an ephah. Okay? So with verse 35, you want to highlight that because the Most High is giving you a carnal representation. Just as he fed my ancestors manna, so shall he feed us with manna, the bread from heaven. Are you beginning to see how this is slowly relating to the Messiah? Okay. Now let us go to Leviticus chapter 23. We're going to start with the summary first. With Leviticus chapter 23, the feasts of Yahuwah, the Sabbath, the Passover, the sheaf of first fruits, the feast of Pentecost, gleaning to be left for the poor, the feast of trumpets, the day of atonement, the feast of tabernacles. Verse 9. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priests. So in this verse, it says that when we reap from the harvest, when we reap from our crops, we are to bring what? A sheaf of the first fruits. Now, those who have a copy of the King James 1611, you will see in the side note that the word sheaf means a handful. In the Hebrew, it is an omer. Now, do you see how this relates to Exodus chapter 16 and Numbers chapter 11? So just as my ancestors kept an omer of the manna as a memorial to remember what Yahuwah fed to them in the wilderness to show to their children's children, so shall we bring an omer of the sheaf. So shall we bring the sheaf of the first fruits of the barley harvest to the high priest. And we just now learned that our omer means what? A handful. So those who had clicked on the video, you saw in the photo cover of the video of a hand holding the sheaf, a handful of the barley harvest. Okay, verse 11. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yahuwah to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. Now, this verse you want to highlight because this is definitely relating to the Messiah. Now, the sheaf is a handful of the barley harvest. And we know that when my people would take the barley and make it into bread, right? And we know the bread represents the Messiah, okay? Because he is the bread of heaven. So as they would take that handful of the first fruits of the barley harvest to bring it to the high priest, the high priest would take that sheaf offering, that handful offering, and bring it before Yahuwah to be accepted on your behalf. Now, what that tells you, remember what the Messiah said? Remember what the word said about the Messiah? He was the Holy One, the acceptable one that can go before Yahuwah to be a mediator between you and the Father. He was the acceptable one, the Holy One, to preach the gospel that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, to preach the acceptable year of Yahuwah. Read Luke chapter 4. Now, when the sheaf weight offering was done, it was done on the morrow that followed after the Sabbath day. See, this day came after the seventh day of Yahuwah's calendar. This is why it's so important to understand Yahuwah's calendar, so you can know what his Sabbath day is. And this is why the sheaf weight offering will always fall on Abib 16th. It is confirmed by the work of Josephus. It is also confirmed by the King James 1611 Bible. And it's also confirmed by many other biblical sources, such as my Wycliffe Bible Dictionary. Okay, verse 12. And ye shall offer that day when ye wave the sheaf, and he lamb without blemish of the first year, for a burnt offering unto Yahuwah. So even on this day of Abib 16, we are to offer a burnt offering unto Yahuwah, a lamb, a male lamb without blemish. Again, all these things are representing the Messiah. Verse 13, and the meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 deal of fine flour, mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be a wine, the fourth part of a hin. So in this verse here, we see the meat offering is dealing with what? Flour mingled with oil. Again, all this is representing the Messiah, for he was the what? The bread of heaven. He was anointed with the full dose of the Ruach HaKodesh, who is the 7 eyes of Yahuwah. Okay? And the drink offering was wine. Again, the wine represent what? The lamb's blood. Verse 14. And ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your El. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generation in all your dwellings. So as we can see here in this verse, what we just learned, that bread, parched corn, and green ears, my brothers and sisters, is talking about barley or wheat, when you learn. Okay, it's not talking about the corn that we see today in America, not the corn or the carb. It's talking about either barley or wheat. And we are to bring what? An offering of our first fruits, of that first crops, unto him. A handful, which is called a sheaf offering. And Yahuwah commanded that this would be a statute forever. So that means it has not went away with, my brothers and sisters. We are to continue this from generation to generation in all our dwellings. So I know what you're thinking, but we in the land of our captivity. We have no temple. We have no high priest in the earthly realm. What can we do? The mystery is, my brothers and sisters, we fulfill this commandment through the Messiah. The Messiah is our offering. He is the burnt offering. He is the meat offering. He is the drink offering. He is all these things. So we are covered for those that had received the new covenant. And how you receive it? By receiving salvation, as written in Romans chapter 10, and being baptized in the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach. And I'm telling you, you must do the water baptism because that's one of the witnesses in the earth. It goes deep. Okay. So the next place we would go to shall be Psalms chapter 78. So now that we have gotten the understanding, what is the sheaf offering? The sheaf offering is the first fruits of the barley harvest. And a sheaf is basically a handful. So you bring into the high priest a handful of the first crop of your barley. Okay. So now we go to Psalm chapter 78. Okay. Psalms chapter 78. And you're probably saying, well, what did that book has to do with the sheaf weight offering? And we shall go to verse 17. Now, this is going to be a deep chapter, but we're going to read verse 17 to 42 because it goes very deep, my brothers and sisters. Okay? Verse 17. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. So this verse is letting you know, it's talking about my ancestors who was in the wilderness for 40 years. Verse 18. And they tempted Yahuwah in their heart by asking meat for their lusts. Yea, they spake against Yahuwah. They said, can Yahuwah furnish a table in the wilderness? Do you see how my people question him? Verse 20. Behold, he smote the rock that the water gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? Do you see again how my ancestors had no faith and was doubting Yahuwah? Verse 21. Therefore Yahuwah heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in Yahuwah and trust not in his salvation. Hebrew Israelites, you want to pay close attention because what our ancestors have done, we are doing it again as a nation of people. We have no faith. And this is especially goes to the awakened Hebrew Israelites. And you will see as we go further in this lesson on what this is talking about and how it applies to you today. Verse 23, though he had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven and had rained down manna upon them to eat and had given them the corn of heaven, man did eat angel food. He sent them meat to be full. So again, the corn of heaven is telling you it is manna. Okay. And manna is what? The bread of heaven. And manna is the angel food. And it was meat to fill their belly. It was meat to fill their bellies. Verse 26. He caused an east wind to blow in the heaven, and by his power he brought in the south wind. He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and fettered souls like as the sand of the sea. And he let it fall in the midst of their camp, round about their habitations. So they did eat, and were well filled, for he gave them their own desire. They were not estranged from their lusts, but while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of Yahuwah came upon them, and slew the fattest of them, and smote down the chosen men of Israel. For all this they sinned still, and believed not for his wondrous works. See, my brothers and sisters, our ancestors did not believe in Yahuwah. They did not believe that he would provide for them after seeing all those wondrous works. And even now, the awakened Hebrew Israelites do not believe in the miracles that was written about the Messiah. And you will see what I'm talking about as we get further in this video. They don't believe in those powers. But yet, they profess and confess about the gospel. Verse 33. Therefore their days did he consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. When he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned, and inquired early after Yahuwah. When you read about my ancestor history, that was the thing they did over and over and over. Every time our father chastised them, they would get in order for a while, but then they would go back to their wicked ways. Verse 35. And they remembered that Yahuwah was their rock, and the high El their redeemer. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth, and they lied unto him with their tongues. See, there's nothing new beneath the sun, my people. The same thing our ancestors did, we're doing it now. That's even for the awakened Hebrew Israelites. Verse 37. For their heart was not right with him, neither were they steadfast in his covenant. Again, you have to understand the Most High. Your heart has to be right with him, Israel. Verse 38. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned he his anger away, and did not strike up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passeth away, and cometh not again. Now you want to highlight this verse, because this is very important. Yahuwah remember, because my ancestors was flesh, this is why he didn't really, cut them off. This is why he didn't destroy the whole nation, because he remembered they were flesh. We're going to talk about that after we finish reading these last verses. How often they provoked him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. Yea, they turned back and tempted Yahuwah and limit the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy. My brothers and sisters, you want to highlight verse 41, because the same thing that was done back then is being done now by the ones who call themselves awakened, the ones who know they are Hebrew Israelites, for they are limiting the Holy One of Israel. And you will see as we go further in this video what I'm talking about. They're doing the same thing that our ancestors have done. Now in verse, let me see, where was it? Verse 39, he said he remembered that they were but flesh. What did that mean? So I wanted you to write down these verses, because you have to understand, if you don't understand what happened to Adam, you're not going to understand what Yahuwah is talking about, that he remembered that they were flesh. Okay? When Adam fell, he lost a great treasure that Yahuwah gave to him. Okay? So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 2 and read verse 21. Genesis chapter 2, verse 21. And you want to highlight this verse because many people are not understanding what happened to Adam after he transgressed. Verse 21. And Yahuwah calls a deep sleep. I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong chapter. It's chapter 3, verse 21. Okay. Genesis chapter 3, verse 21. Unto Adam also and to his wife did Yahuwah make coats of skins and clothe them. You want to highlight that. Because many do not know the flesh that Yahuwah is talking about is the skin that's covering our bodies. See, many do not understand the mystery of the true nature of Adam and Eve. What was the true natures of their bodies, my brothers and sisters? What were they clothed in before they fell? That's a mystery that I'm going to lead to you to do some homework on. Okay? So I want you not only to read Genesis chapter 3, verse 21, but I'm going to put a video in the description box. Now, this is not the title of this video, but this video will give you the understanding of the nature of Adam before the transgression. Okay? Because they was not clothed in skin that we see now on our bodies. The skin that we are in is prohibiting us to understand spiritual things. Okay? Also read Genesis chapter 6, verse 3 and Psalms chapter 102, verse 5. Because in Psalms chapter 102, verse 5, in the side note, you will see that skin is flesh. And I have to do this because when you're dealing with the children of Satan and those who do not have a copy of the 1611, I have to show this as proof because I know how the children of Satan are. So we're going to go to 102 and we're going to look at verse 5. So those who have a copy of the 1611, you go to Psalms chapter 102, verse 5. There's a side note there. And in verse 5, it reads, by reason of the voice of my groaning, my bones cleave to my skin. Okay? So when you look at the side note, skin means flesh. And I have another proof for that. Let me click on the picture. So we can enlarge it. When you look at verse 5, you will see skin is flesh over here. Okay? Take this time down to pause your screen and you will see that the skin is flesh. All right? So when Adam and Eve fell, their nature was changed and they were clothed in skin, which is flesh. And this flesh that we are in prohibit us to understand these spiritual things. Okay? Now we're going to transition to the new covenant and we're going to see how the Messiah is the sheaf of the first fruits of the harvest and why he's the acceptable Holy One unto Yahuwah. Now this is going to be very deep and I ask you to bear with me, but we're going to have to read John chapter 6, verse 26 to 65. Okay? It goes very deep. And you probably say, well, why, Sister, you didn't read all these scriptures? They so long. Well, when you read John chapter 6, and when we read these verses, you will see why. Because in order for you to understand the sheaf weight offering and why the Messiah is represented by that, then you begin to understand spiritual things. And again, the sheaf weight offering is pertaining to bread, okay? Because that's what they use the barley for. They make bread from it. So we're going to read verse 26 through 65. Yahushua answered them and said, verily, verily, I say unto you, ye seek me, not because ye saw the miracles, but because you did eat of the loaves and were filled. See how the Messiah is always talking about bread and being filled. Verse 27, labor not for the meat which perisheth, but the meat which endureth unto everlasting life, which the Son of Man shall give unto you. for him have Yahuwah the Father sealed. So here again, when you see the word meat, it does not always pertain to flesh. And you can see that in Psalms chapter 78 and also in Leviticus chapter 23. So when you see the word meat, it can pertain to bread, to grains, to flour. Okay. So he told us not to labor for the carnal meat that we have here on earth, which is the physical bread, but we should labor for the meat that shall give us everlasting life. That's a spiritual mystery in that, my brothers and sisters. You need to highlight that verse. Okay? Then we're going to read verse 28. Then said they unto him, what shall we do that we might work for the works of Yahuwah? Okay? So they ask him, well, how do we get this meat that's going to give us everlasting life? Yahushua answered and said unto them, this is the work of Yahuwah, that ye believe on him whom he hath sent. So you have to believe on the Messiah in order to get this bread, to get everlasting life. Okay? Let us continue to read. They said therefore unto him, what sign shewest thou then, that we may see and believe thee? What doest thou work? Our father did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Now, do you see how we're going back to the old covenant? Why we started with the old covenant? You got to understand the old covenant to understand the new covenant. Okay? Verse 32. Then Yahushua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not the bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. Do you see this? You probably say, whoa, wait a minute. I thought that manna came from heaven. See, I know you're thinking carnally now. But Messiah is trying to give you a deeper spiritual meaning. He said, Yahuwah will give you the true bread from heaven. So who is that true bread from heaven that he's talking about? Let us continue to read. For the bread of Yahuwah is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. Now you want to highlight that because we're about to go deep about the Messiah. Very deep, okay? Verse 34. Then saith they unto him, Master, evermore give us this bread. Okay? And Yahushua said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. Highlight that, my brothers and sisters. We're about to go deep now. But I say unto you that ye also have seen me and believe not. See, they didn't believe on him, even when he did all those great wonders, my brothers and sisters. Even when he showed them his great wisdom and taught them in the synagogues, they still didn't believe it. They still didn't believe on him. They still could not see him for who he really was. That flesh, my brothers and sisters. Okay, let us continue to read. All that the Father giveth me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me. So for my Christians and Gentiles, I want you to understand, the Father and the Son are two separate beings. Stop worshiping them as one is the same. They're not. He told you he came down from heaven to do Yahuwah's will. Okay? This is another verse you want to highlight, my brothers and sisters, because a lot of them don't understand the miracle of his birth. Because we're about to go deep. I got some other scriptures to show you about why he is the second Adam. A lot of people don't understand why he is the second Adam. Okay? Let us continue to read. And this is the Father's will which has sent me, that all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. So again, when you read Isaiah 53 and you learn about his inheritance, he said, all that is given to him, he shall lose nothing. He's given an inheritance, my brothers and sisters. Okay, by Yahuwah. And he said that he should raise up again at the last day. So what is that inheritance that the Messiah is talking about that he's going to raise up at the last day. I'll give you a little hint. Read Romans chapter 10 and 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Okay. Verse 40, and this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I'll raise him up the last day. Again, you have to believe in the Messiah. You have to receive him. He is the way to eternal life. He is the bread from heaven. You probably say, well, what did that really mean? Let's continue to read. Verse 41. Then the Jews then murmured at him because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. You see how they was thinking carnally? They couldn't understand it, and yet they had the prophets. They had the prophets' writings, my brothers and sisters, and they still could not understand these spiritual things. Verse 42. And they said, is not this Joseph, the son of Joseph? And they said, is not this Yahuwshua, the son of Joseph, who father and mother we know? How is it then that he saith, I came down from heaven? Now you want to highlight this verse because when many read this verse, they're not really understanding what the Judeans was asking the Messiah. They were not understanding what the Judeans were asking, what the Jews were asking, what the Israelites were asking. Because see, they saw him as a regular man. They saw him as being the son of Joseph and being the son of Mary. See, they didn't know about his miraculous birth, nor did they understand the prophecies that pertain to him. They was, again, in the flesh, being carnal. Okay? So this is why they couldn't receive him as being the Messiah. Okay? And we'll go more deeper into that. Now, there's a precept for that verse. And I want you to read Matthew chapter 13, verse 55. But let us continue. Yahushua therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him, and I will raise him up the last day. Okay? So we see here in these verses, Yahushua is still going back talking about the resurrection. The resurrection. Again, we have to understand about this resurrection because there's a spiritual mystery about this. See, again, we're looking at this carnally. Okay, let's continue to read. Verse 45. It is written in the prophets that they shall be all taught of Yahuwah. Every man therefore that hath heard and hath learned of the Father cometh unto me. Not that any man have seen the Father, save he which is of Yahuwah, he have seen the Father. Now this verse you want to highlight because the Messiah is telling them that it is written by the prophets that all shall be taught of Yahuwah. Okay? And every man therefore that have ear and have learned of the Father cometh to him. So in other words, those who have truly read the word will recognize who he is. Okay? Because they won't be in the flesh. They won't look at things carnally. Verse 47, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth me hath everlasting life. Now again, the Messiah is always going back to this. Everlasting life. Him coming directly down from heaven. Okay? Verse 49, your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. See, he's letting you know the carnal bread they ate, well, in other words, the angel bread they ate didn't give them eternal life. They did. Verse 50, this is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. See, the bread that he's talking about will give you eternal life. So what is this bread? I'm going to give y'all a little hint. You got to read John chapter 1. John chapter 1. Okay? But I'm going to continue to read. Verse 51, I am the living bread which come down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I would give for the life of the world. Now I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people are going to read this verse and look at this carnally and think like the heathens. Think like them Roman Catholics. See, y'all going to be thinking that you're going to have to eat human flesh. This verse ain't even talking about that. But let us continue to read, because there's some deep mysteries that the Messiah is giving us here. Verse 52. The Judeans therefore strove amongst themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? Because in Torah, we can't eat human flesh. That's against the law. So you see how they were looking at this carnally? So it goes back to Psalm 78, verse 39. They are flesh. They have no understanding of spiritual things. Okay? Verse 53. Then Yahuwshua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. I want to read this verse again, but I want to read it correctly, because this is the thing about English. When some words are translated, it don't give you the true effectual meaning. So I'm going to read this to you again. Except, verse 53. Then Yahuwshua said unto them, verily, verily I say unto you, except ye eat the flesh of the son of Adam and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. That put my people in a flip. They were probably tripping over this. We read verse 54. Whosoever eat my flesh and drinketh my blood have eternal life, and I will raise him up from the last day. Again, he's speaking spiritual things. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. Do you see this deep spiritual mystery? I want you to highlight verse 56, because he said what? When we eat of his flesh and drink of his blood, he would dwell in us. Okay? Do you see this? God saying, well, what does this mean, Sister Yedida? You have to understand what happens when you receive salvation and baptism. You have to understand what will happen to you, my brothers and sisters. You're going to have to read John chapter 14 to John chapter 16. Okay? And read 1 John chapter 5. Because he's not talking about carnal flesh or carnal blood. He's talking about something deeply spiritual here. Let me read verse 57. As the living Father has sent me, I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. So when we partake in his flesh and partake in his blood, he will dwell in us. And we shall have eternal life, and he shall raise us up from the dead. Verse 58. This is the bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eat of this bread shall live forever. These things said he in the synagogue as he taught in Capernaum. So he was teaching them these things. Now, this was throwing my people in a flip, because they was looking at this carnally. They was actually thinking that the Messiah was telling him to eat his flesh and to drink his blood. They was not understanding these spiritual things. But let us continue to read. Verse 60, many therefore for his disciples, when they had heard this, said, this is a hard saying. Who can hear it? And you understand their mindset. You can understand where they were coming from, because they were looking at this carnally. Verse 61, when Yahushua knew in himself that his disciples murmured at it, he said unto them, do this offend you? What and if ye shall see the son of Adam ascend up where he was before? See, they had an understanding where he really came from. Then they will understand these things that he's telling to them. Let us continue to read, because I know you was like, what does this mean, Sister Gideon? What did this mean? But let us continue to read, okay? Verse 63, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Now, this is the verse you want to highlight because now he's giving you more spiritual insight of what he means by eating his flesh and drinking his blood. He said, well, it is the spirit that quickeneth. What does quickeneth mean? To make alive, to give life, right? So it's the spirit that gives life. The flesh gives nothing. It profit you nothing, this flesh that we in, because we are already damned to death in this flesh that we're in. Again, read Genesis chapter 6, verse 3 to understand that mystery about why your flesh profiteth nothing. So it is the spirit that giveth life. And the Messiah said, the words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So these words that are written in the King James 16:11, as well in the hidden books, these are what give us life. This is the bread that he's talking about, my brothers and sisters. Is not the Messiah the living word of Yahuwah, the living bread? Okay. Verse 63. But there are some of you that believe not, for Yahushua knew from the beginning who they were that believed not, and who should betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you, that no man can come unto me except it was given unto him of my Father. Okay. Make sure I cover all the verses. Yep, that was it on that verse there. So he made it clear, you have to go through him to get to the Father. You have to go to the Messiah to get to the fire. I want to read verse 65 again, because there's something else he was saying here. And he said, therefore I say unto you that no man can come unto me except it was given unto him of my Father. See what he's saying there. And it's a verse we're going to go to and read to give more understanding. You have to be awakened. You have to be able to see and understand these things. And only Yahuwah has the power to do that. This is why Peter was able to tell him who he was, because the Holy Spirit who was sitting by Yahuwah told Peter that he was the son of Yahuwah. He was the Messiah. Only Yahuwah can reveal these things to us, my brothers and sisters. Now, to give you more understanding again about this, about the bread from heaven, and about these words that we read every day being the bread from heaven, we're going to have to go to Matthew chapter 4, verse 1 through 4. Again, I know this lesson is deep and long, but we have to go through it, my brothers and sisters, for you to understand about the sheaf weight offering and why the Messiah was resurrected on this day. So we can go to Matthew chapter 4, and we read verse 1 through 4. Then was Yahushua led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. So the Spirit led Yahushua to the wilderness, my brothers and sisters. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards in hunger. Remember, the Messiah was in flesh. Okay? So imagine what it was like to be hungry and have not eaten anything for 40 days and 40 nights. Verse 3, and when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the son of Yahuwah, command that these stones be made bread. Okay? Do you see how we're going back to the word bread again? And do you see how Satan comes at you when you're at your weakest point? Because he was hungry. So the devil told him, if you be the son of Yahuwah, turn these stones into bread. And this is what the Messiah said to him. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out the mouth of Yahuwah. Do that sound familiar, Hebrew Israelites? The same thing he was telling them in John chapter 6. It is not the carnal bread that we eat that give us life. It is the living bread, the living word the bread from heaven. This is also confirmed in Torah. Let us go to Deuteronomy chapter 8, and we're going to read verse 1 through 6, and I want you to pay attention to verse 3. And as we're reading these verses, these are some key words I want you to remember, because this is going to apply to you, awakened Israelites. This going to apply to you. The key words are humble, wilderness, and remnant. So let us go to Deuteronomy chapter 8. And we're going to read these verses. Verse 1. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land which Yahuwah sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which Yahuwah thy El led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee, and to prove thee, to know what is in thy heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. The same way my ancestor was tested, you're going to be tested in the wilderness, Hebrew Israelites. He's going to see where your heart is. He's going to see your heart. Something to really pay attention. Verse 3. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna which thou knowest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man do not live by bread only, but by every word proceeded out of the mouth of Yahuwah do man live. So the same way he tested them, he was trying to teach them spiritual things, but they weren't getting it. They were so focused on carnal things. This is why they lack faith. Okay? This is why they doubt in his salvation. This is why they question whether they were going to live in the wilderness. This is why they question Yahuwah, whether he was going to feed them, because they were in the flesh. So as they was tested in the wilderness, only a remnant enter into the Holy Land. What was done then shall happen again, my brothers and sisters. For you shall be tested, and he's going to see where your heart is. And only a remnant shall enter into the Holy Land. Okay? Read Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 33 to 44. Verse 4. Thy remnant waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. So even the 40 years, their garments did not get old, and neither did their foot swell, because he was with them. They didn't get it. Thou shalt also consider in thy heart that as a man chastens his son, so Yahuwah thy El chastens thee. This is how much he loved you, Israel. When you go astray, when you go wrong, he chastised you to bring you back into righteousness. This is why we are under the curses of Deuteronomy 28. He's trying to save you, Israel. Verse 6, therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of Yahuwah thy El, to walk in his ways and to fear him. This is a chapter you definitely want to go back and read and study more on. Again, do you see how we're always going back to manna, bread, the living word? And when you understand that these words that we read in this book, they are spiritual, and they will give us life. And the Messiah is the living word. He is the word of Yahuwah, for those who understand that mystery. Okay? So again, focus on those key words that's in Deuteronomy chapter 8. Humble, wilderness, remnant, and read Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 33 to 44. Now we're going to the book of Colossians. For now we're going more deeper to understand how the Messiah is the first fruit of the harvest. Let us go there now. Colossians chapter 1, and we can read 12 to 20. Colossians chapter 1, verse 12 to 20. Giving thanks unto Yahuwah, which have made us meet to be partakers in the inheritance of the saints in light. Again, the Father always come in light, not in darkness. Again, I want to read this verse. Giving thanks to you unto Yahuwah, which have made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and has translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. Again, the Father's about light. He's not about darkness. And verse 14, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sin. So we are redeemed through the blood of the Lamb. Verse 15, who is the image of the invisible Yahuwah, the firstborn of every creature. You want to highlight that, my brothers and sisters. So the Messiah is the image of the invisible Yahuwah, the one that we cannot see. So like the Son said to them, when they ask about seeing the Father or what the Father looked like, he said, if you've seen me, then you've seen the Father. And the Messiah is the firstborn of every creature. So we know that the Messiah was made before the earth, before the heavens, before the angels. He was made before all of this. Read the book of Hebrews and the book of Genesis and the book of Jubilees and the book of Enoch, and you will understand. Even read 1st and 2nd and Adam and Eve. Verse 16, for by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. Okay? That verse you definitely want to highlight. Verse 17, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Is he not the living word of Yahuwah? Verse 18, and he is the head of the body, the bride, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have the preeminence. So this verse you want to highlight. Now we begin to understand why he is the first fruits. Why he is the sheaf of the first fruits. For he is the firstborn from the dead. He is the first one to be resurrected from the dead, my brothers and sisters. Verse 19, for it pleased Yahuwah that in him shall all fullness dwell. Now that verse you want to highlight. What does it mean that all fullness dwell in him? To understand what is the fullness that dwelled in him, you're going to have to read 1 John chapter 5. And I have other verses. Read also Isaiah chapter 11. For many do not understand the fullness that was in the Messiah. Don't understand it. Okay. Verse 20. And having made peace through the blood of the cross, by him to reconcile all things unto himself. By him I say, whether they be things in earth or things in heaven. So this verse you definitely want to highlight, because he said, having made peace through the blood of his cross. Now you got to understand what it means by the blood of his cross, because it's talking about a mark. So those who read the book of Nicodemus, you will learn that he put a mark upon the saints so they can enter into heaven, the souls that he delivered from Sheol. Okay, so when you understand Hebrew, when you look at Picto Hebrew, and you have to look at Paleo Hebrew, which is an ancient form of Hebrew, you will learn that the Messiah has a mark too. Now in Picto Hebrew, it's in the form of a cross. In the Paleo Hebrew, which is ancient Hebrew, it's a form of an X. And when you look up and see what that word means, it means a mark, sign, X, or cross. Ownership, to seal, covenant. Join two things together. The last. If he's not the first and the last, did he not establish a new covenant for us? Is not the covenant sealed in his blood? Is not the mark that he make upon you made in his blood? Do you begin to see how all this come together? Now you begin to see why he is the firstborn of the resurrection, and why the sheaf of the first fruits of the body heart represent of what he did and what he's about to come back and do. It goes deep. So to understand the lamb's mark that's made with his blood, you need to read Ephesians chapter 1, verse 13 to 14. That pertains to Yahuwshua bride. Read Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4. Read Revelation chapter 7, verse 3, because that will pertain to the 144,000 who are Hebrew Israelites. Okay? And the Hebrew letter for Picto and Paleo Hebrew is Taw. You may see it spelled as T-A-W or T-A-V. Right? So just as the Lamb have his mark, so does the anti-Messiah have his mark. The difference is the Lamb mark is made with his blood. And his blood is holy and sanctified unto Yahuwah. That's the difference. Okay? Take this time now to pause your screen, because this particular Hebrew, Picto Hebrew, and dealing with the image that you see here pertaining to Passover and with the cross and with the Hebrew letter Yod is discussed in the Passover video. So if you want more in-depth of why I'm showing you these photos here, you will have to watch that video to get more understanding. Now we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22 to 29 to get a understanding about the Messiah being the firstborn of the resurrection. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22 to 29. So let us go there next. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22. But ye are come unto Mount Zion, and unto the city of the living Yahuwah, the heavenly Jerusalem, to an innumerable company of angels. Now this verse is letting you know what realm we are talking about. We're not talking about the earthly realm. We are talking about a heavenly realm. Also, in your spare time, read 2 Esdras chapter 13. But let us continue to read. To the general assembly and the bride of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to Yahuwah, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect. So in verse 23, we see the bride that the Gentiles call today the church, but the bride of the firstborn. So you need to ask, who is this firstborn? Okay. So who is this firstborn? In verse 23. Verse 24, and to Yahushua, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. Now, to understand why Abel was mentioned, you have to understand Genesis. For the first blood that was spilt upon the earth was Abel, but that blood was spilt unjustly. This is why the Messiah blood can speak better things, because his blood was spilt to establish a new covenant. Even though this man was innocent, he was killed by his own people, and he was turned over into the hands of the Gentiles. So when you compare their deaths, when you compare Abel's death to the Messiah death, that's the difference. So when the Messiah blood was spilt, it established a new covenant, the blood of his cross. so that all of us can be redeemed and returned back to Yahuwah. For we do not belong to Yahuwah. For we do not belong to Satan, Adam. We belong to Yahuwah. And when I mention Adam, I'm talking about mankind. Mankind belong to Yahuwah. They don't belong to Satan. Okay? For those who understand the mystery about Genesis and what happened when Adam transgressed against Yahuwah. Verse 25. See that ye refuse not him that speaketh, for if they escape not who refuse him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven. So when you read Revelation 12, if we want to be able to escape into the wilderness that he has prepared for us in the heaven and in the earth, then we should not denounce the Messiah. We should not deny his salvation that he has established for us, which is the new covenant. Verse 26, whose voice then shook the earth, but now he has promised, saying, yet once more, I spake not the earth only, but also heaven. Make sure I read all the verses. Nope, I got to go a little bit more. Sorry about that. Verse 27. And this word yet once more signified the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Wherefore, if we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace, whereby we may serve Yahuwah acceptably with reverence and godly fear. For our El is a consuming fire. Okay, so from reading other scripture, we know that this time the world is going to be destroyed by fire. Okay, and the Most High is not playing, and the kingdom that's coming shall be eternal. So when we go back to verse 23, when we look at who is this firstborn, who is the bride of the firstborn? Okay, so who is this firstborn this verse is talking about? It's talking about the Messiah, for he was the first one that was resurrected from the grave. Okay. Now we're going to the part where understanding what is regeneration and resurrection. And we will find this answer when we look at the second Adam. Okay. So we're going to go to Luke chapter 24, verse 36 through 49. Luke chapter 24. We're going to read verse 36 through 39. And make sure I got the right verse. Okay. Verse 36 through 49. Sorry. Because a lot of people not understanding the mystery of what happened to the Messiah when he resurrected from the grave. And we can find that answer in Luke chapter 24. And as they thus spake, Yahushua himself stood in the midst of them and saith unto them, Peace be unto you. But they were terrified and afraid and supposed that they had seen a spirit. So they thought the Messiah came back to them as a ghost. Okay. Verse 38. And he said unto them, Why are ye troubled? And why do thoughts arise in your hearts? Now, this is a perfect understanding to understand what your heart says. Soul, your mind, what you think, that voice that you hear inside your head, that's your soul talking. Verse 39. Behold, my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit have not flesh and bones, as ye see me have. So you want to highlight that verse. The Messiah is telling them that he's not a spirit. In other words, he's not a ghost. he has come back to them in the flesh, but his nature is different, my brothers and sisters. We're going to talk more about that. So I want you to remember, going back to Mark chapter 16, when you read further down, you will learn that the Messiah body was no longer in the tomb. So the question you need to ask, my brothers and sisters, where is his body? And how does this relate to the second Adam? How does this relate to regeneration and to the resurrection? Verse 40. And when he had thus spoken, he shewed them his hands and his feet. And while they yet believed not for joy and wonder, he said unto them, have ye here any meat? Do you see how he's asking for food? It's a reason for this. Let us continue to read. And they gave him a piece of a broad fish and of a honeycomb, and he took it and did eat before them. So you need to ask, why would the Messiah do this? Let me tell you why. When the Messiah resurrected from the grave, so did his body. His body is not dead, my people. His body is eternal. When you understand the mystery on how Adam was created, do you understand the Messiah's body and why he's called the second Adam and why he's called the last Adam? Think about it. This is why he asked them to give him food, to prove to them he is in the body, he has a soul, and he has spirit. 3 in 1. We'll talk more about that as we go further in this video. Okay? But let us read further down. And he took it and did eat before them. And he said unto them, these are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you. All the things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses, in the prophets, and in the songs concerning me. This is why it's so important to understand the Old Covenant. Then you understand the prophecies and these mysteries. Verse 45, then opened he their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. Now you want to highlight that. Again, you have to receive the ability. In other words, your eyes have to be open, your eyes and ears have to be open to receive understanding. But that understanding has to be permitted by Yahuwah and Yahushua. They have the powers to do that. So highlight this verse. Then opened he their understanding. So the Messiah opened their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. This is why that when you go back and read the word, you'll be like, oh, I read this before, but now I truly understand what the word is telling me here. It is because of he who dwells in you. Let us continue to read. And said unto them, thus it is written, and thus it behooved the Messiah to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day. This is another verse you want to highlight. He risen from the dead on the third day, which is Abib 16th. He was crucified on Abib 14th. That's day 1. Abib 15th is day 2. And Abib 16th is day 3. Okay? And that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name among all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And ye are witnesses of these things. Verse 49. And behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, but tarry ye in the city of Jerusalem until ye be endued with the power from on high. So we know the promise that he's talking about, the comforter. Again, many people don't understand who is the comforter. And I'm going to give you a little hint. It is he who dwells in you. He is the one who has the fullness of Yahuwah. For those who understand that mystery, it is the Messiah. I know your mouth is dropping, but go back and read John chapter 14 to chapter 16, and then you will understand what I'm talking about. The Messiah dwells in all of us. Matthew chapter 28, verse 20. Okay? Now, another thing I want you to pay attention in this verse from 49, it said what? He told them to stay in Jerusalem until they can receive the powers from on high. Now, this is when you begin to get more understanding about the Ruach HaKodesh, those powers. The Ruach HaKodesh is the seven eyes of Yahuwah, and that is the spirit that comes from Yahuwah that gives you your powers and your gifts. But the only way you can receive it, you first have to receive salvation. You first have to receive the Messiah in your heart. For those who understand that spiritual mystery about the Comforter. If you don't receive the Messiah, you cannot receive the Ruach HaKodesh powers and gifts. Okay? So now we're going to take a look at 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 45 to 50. And we're almost finishing up, my people. We're about there. It's not as long, okay? Because you really need to understand the second Adam nature. Because again, I know you look at this carnally. I don't think you really understand his true nature when he was resurrected from the grave. Anybody saying, well, what is Sister you there talking about? So let us go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and you will see. So now from the book of Luke, we have just confirmed that the Messiah body was resurrected. Okay, and that when you read further down, he returned back. He went back to heaven with his resurrected body, my people. Okay. So when we go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we're going to look at verse 45, and we're going to read to verse 50. And so it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul, and the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Now you need to highlight that because it go with John chapter 6, verse 63. It said the first Adam was made a living soul. Okay. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. So our forefather Adam was made a living soul. He was a living eternal being before he transgressed against Yahuwah. But the Messiah, who is the second Adam, who is also the last Adam, and you got to ask yourself why he's the last Adam. You got to ask yourself that. He was made a quickening spirit. What did that mean? And we'll go back and see what that means, okay? But let us continue to read. Howbeit that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and after that which is spiritual. So it's this verse here is telling you, how is that the Messiah, who is a spiritual being, remember, he was a spirit in heaven. He was a spiritual being. But then he came to earth and he became a earthly being, okay? And then when he was resurrected from the grave, he returned back to being a spiritual being. You probably saying, what? Huh? But you probably saying, well, wasn't his body resurrected? Well, you didn't. The best way I can describe this so you can have understanding. You have to understand the true nature of Adam. Adam's covenant was not in flesh. The covenant that the Most High had Adam in gave him the ability to be a spiritual being. In other words, for him to understand spiritual things. This is a mystery that many don't understand. So you have to read 1st and 2nd Adam to understand what the book of Genesis is telling you. But let us continue to read. The first Adam is of the earth. And that is true because he was made from earth, right? Our forefather Adam, right? The second Adam is the master from heaven. Because he originally came from heaven. That's his origin. The Messiah original origins were from heaven. And he came from heaven, the living word, as written in John chapter 1. And the living word was clothed in flesh. And he was clothed in the flesh from a descendant of David, Mary. I'm about to go deep. Verse 48. As is the earthly, such are they that are earthly, and as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. This verse you want to highlight because the Messiah is giving us an example that we shall follow. This is what yet to come. What the Messiah went through, so shall the bride of the Messiah and the 144,000 shall go through. This is why, to understand the mystery of regeneration, and we know that regeneration means to be born again, there are 3 steps to it. And those who have received salvation and baptism have received 2 of the 3 steps. But that 3rd step we are waiting to come to pass. Our bodies have to be transformed. It has to be changed. Okay? Oh, see here, verse 49. And as we born the image of the earthly, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. You want to highlight, see how we want to highlight this verse. I was getting excited. Excuse me for my tone. It said, well, as we born the image of the earthly, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. So as we are the descendants of Adam, we bear what? The earthly image, right? But when we are born again, when we are regenerated, we shall bear the image of the second Adam, which is the Messiah. Okay? And I know you're probably scratching your head. Okay, that means eternal life. Yes, it does mean eternal life, but it goes a little deeper. I don't want to give it away yet, okay? Let me read this last verse. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah, neither do corruption inherit incorruption. So we already know that we cannot go, okay, we already know that we cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. In other words, we cannot partake in the inheritance that's in the kingdom of heaven because right now we are in the flesh, okay? And this flesh prohibits us to be connected with the Father. So this is why we wait on the 3rd step of the regeneration. Okay? I don't want to reveal the true nature yet, but I want to get through this part. So to understand why the Messiah is a quickening spirit, because a lot of people don't understand what happens to you when you receive salvation. Before salvation, you are spiritually dead to Yahuwah. Spiritually within, you are dead. And to understand that, you have to read Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. And also in your spare time, read Isaiah chapter 11 and John chapter 6, verse 63, to understand how the Messiah is a quickening spirit. So when you receive the Messiah in your heart, you become spiritually alive. Okay? He brings you back to life. And because of he who dwells in you, you become connected to the Father and to the Ruach HaKodesh, as well as to the Son, because he's bringing all 3 into you. That's the mystery that many don't understand. This is why it's written in John chapter 14, verse 6, that Yahushua said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man come unto the Father but by me. So if you don't receive the Messiah in your heart, then you can't receive life. Then you can't receive truth. And you will not be allowed to enter into the kingdom of heaven. You have to receive the Messiah in your heart. Okay? So again, to understand how the Messiah is a quickening spirit, you have to go back to John chapter 6, verse 63. For it said, it is the spirit that quickeneth. So again, the Messiah, is he not a spirit? Yes. So when you receive him in your heart, he dwells in you. His spirit dwells in you. And his spirit revitalizes you. It brings you back to life because you were spiritually dead. This is why you cannot understand the word that was written in the King James 16:11, nor in the hidden books, because you were spiritually dead. You were blind. You could not see. You could not hear. Okay? Because if you don't receive the Messiah, you remain in the flesh, and this flesh prohibits you and blocks you from understanding spiritual things. This is why he said, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So is not the Messiah the living word of Yahuwah? Is not the Messiah a spirit? Okay, so when you understand him, then you understand these scriptures. So when you read 1 Corinthians chapter 15, another thing you will learn the difference between the first Adam and the second Adam is that the first Adam did not fear Yahuwah, because if he feared Yahuwah, my brothers and sisters, he would not have been deceived by Eve. He would not have eaten the forbidden fruit. Do you see the connection now? But with his son, Yahushua, he was made to fear Yahuwah. From you go back and read Matthew chapter 4, when the devil was tempting him, he told Satan that we should only serve and worship Yahuwah the Father. He said that. It goes back to Deuteronomy chapter 6. It's in there. Okay? And what saved the Messiah from the temptation of Satan was the word of Yahuwah. That would save the Messiah. That would cause the devil to flee from him. So if you don't have the Messiah in your heart, who is the living word, and if you don't feed yourself the word on a daily basis, you are setting yourself up to be tricked by Satan. You are setting yourself up to follow the leaven of the Pharisees, because you're not feeding your spirit. Do you see how all this connects? Okay. So now I'm going to take you to Revelation chapter 1, verse 16, because here is the true nature that the first Adam was in before they fell. Adam and Eve, before they fell. Here's the true nature. So let's go there now. I know you've been not dying, but, wanting to know what was the true nature. And this nature is confirmed in first and second book of Adam and Eve. And I'm going to let you know, my brothers and sisters, if you continue to listen to the Pharisees and them telling you not to read those hidden books, you are denying yourself wisdom and understanding of the scriptures in the King James 16:11. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. Revelation chapter 1, verse 16. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Now, when you read Matthew chapter 17 and Revelation chapter 1, what do you know about the Messiah? When he's in his regenerated form, and some may say heavenly form, does he not shine like a bright white light as the sun shine? So the same should happen to us. Read Luke chapter 20. Also read, it's in the book of Corinthians. I want to find it for you, to confirm to you what I'm telling you. Read 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and start with verse. Tell you what, read that whole chapter and you'll see what I'm talking about. Read 2 Corinthians chapter 3. For right now, we have only received 2 of the steps of regeneration. We have received being born again, being born of the Spirit and of the water. Now we're waiting for the final step of regeneration, for our bodies has to be transformed. Okay? For right now, we are covered in flesh. We have to be covered in light. And the flesh has to be removed. Now, do you understand this, my brothers and sisters? Now, do you understand why the Messiah is the last Adam and why he's the second Adam? For he's so in other words, the same way the first Adam was created, he was unique, right? He was unique in his creation. So therefore, the second Adam, when he was made being unique. And you'll see what I'm talking about as we go further down. So to get more understanding about the harvest represents the gathering the redemption, the Exodus. And many are not aware there are two wilderness. There's one in the heavens and there's one in the earth. So one of the books you can read is Revelation chapter 12. There's many other books in the King James 1611, from the Old Testament to the Apocrypha to the New Testament, that will confirm to you what I'm telling you. Also, I want to bring this to your attention. A lot of people are not aware. After the Messiah had delivered the souls out of Sheol, you need to ask yourself, where do the righteous souls go? Because right now, their bodies cannot be resurrected. Okay? So you need to ask yourself, where do the righteous souls go? For we know they're no longer in Sheol. Okay? So we can find that answer in the book of Nicodemus. I'm going to put the link in the video description box. But read Luke chapter 23, verse 39 to 43. For one of the males who was crucified beside the Messiah was giving the answer. And I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to read it. Okay? So when you read Luke chapter 23, verse 39 to 43, you will learn where the souls do go after they die. I'm talking about the righteous souls, okay? What they have to go to a place and wait until the first resurrection. All right? So the next thing we want to look at is that where is paradise? Okay? You have to read 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and 1st and 2nd Enoch to understand this. Which brings us to this. When we talk about the resurrection, a lot of people are not aware there are two resurrections. Yes, there's a first and second resurrection. Read Revelation chapter 20. The second resurrection will come after the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah and the righteous one. Okay? The second resurrection will come after the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah and of the Messiah with his righteous ones. You need to read Revelation chapter 20, verse 4 to 5. Now, my question to you, brother, sister, which one will you be a part of? Are you going to be part of the first resurrection? Or are you going to be part of the second resurrection? It all depends on you, on your works, on your heart, and whether or not if you have received salvation. Okay? Now, going back to the mystery of dealing with him being the second Adam. And we were about to close. We're about closing this out. The spirit joining flesh without fornication nor sex, just like the way the first Adam was made. For the Messiah was made without sex. Are we not dust? Are we not of the earth? Read Genesis chapter 2 and 7, 3 and 19, Job chapter 4 and 19, and Psalms chapter 103 verse 14. So that is the mystery about why the Messiah is the second Adam. For the Messiah was born by a virgin who did not have sex. And this is what I was talking about when we read Psalm 78. See, today the Hebrew Israelites who are awakened put limits on the Most High powers, nor do they understand the prophecy that the prophet Isaiah gave to them of how the Messiah shall be born of a virgin. Nor have they read Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, for it's written that the Messiah would be of the woman's seed. Okay? Also in Galatians chapter 4, does it not say that he be made of a woman? And this is why they don't understand the mystery. So we're going to compare the first Adam to the second Adam. Now, the first Adam was made of the earth, right? He did not come by sperm, right? So the second Adam is made of the earth. You probably say, what did that mean? Okay. Is not Mary made of earth? Think about it. Are we not dust that come from the earth? Does not okay, in other words, when we die, when our body decay, does not return back as dust back to the earth? Think about it. So with the second Adam, the Messiah, he also is made of the earth. For he is made with the embryo of Mary. That is how he got his flesh. That is how he became a descendant of David, because he had the blood of David descendant. And when you look at the word seed in the Hebrew, it do means children, progeny, progeny. And I know the brothers, they're going to look at the Greek, they say, well, in the Greek it says sperma, but they don't take it further. So when you look up the definition of sperma, it means children, descendant. Again, those brothers are not born again. They are in the flesh, in the carnal. Again, read Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and Galatians chapter 4, verse 1 through 7 to understand that mystery of how the Messiah is born of a virgin without sperm. The second thing is, did not Adam become a living soul by breath? So the same thing, what happened to a baby? In order for a baby to live after he's born, he got to what? Take a breath in, right? And from that breath, he's able to live. He becomes what? A living soul. Now the third thing is not the first Adam received the spirit of Yahuwah. So the second Adam received the spirit of Yahuwah, but he was made to fear Yahuwah. He was given the 7 eyes of Yahuwah. And he came in the full anointing of Yahuwah. For within him, within the Messiah, he had the spirit of Yahuwah upon him. He is, the Messiah is the living word. And he had the full powers of the Ruach HaKodesh, who is the 7 eyes of Yahuwah. This is why he's the fullness of Yahuwah. You have a chance for the second Adam, read these verses, Isaiah chapter 11, and read the gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And for the first Adam, read the book of Genesis, and also read Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. For when Adam was covered, which is mankind, and our forefather Adam, when they was covered with skin, which is flesh, the Father said this in Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. He said, for man is flesh. Let me get it. I want to read it to you. I want to make sure I quote it right. Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. And Yahuwah said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. So the part you want to highlight is, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. And what is flesh? That skin covering that he put on his body. This would prohibit us to understand the Father. This is what that skin, that flesh is our downfall. Okay? So when the first Adam was created, the Most High planted his heart in him, his spirit in him, which is confirmed in 2 Esdras chapter 16, verse 61. So when you get some time, please read those scriptures that you see on the screen. Okay? So now we understand why the Messiah is the son of Yahuwah. For his father is Yahuwah, and his mother is Mary, for she provided the flesh and the blood, which makes him a descendant of David. Okay? And no fornication and no sex took place. It was by the divine powers of Yahuwah, which is confirmed in Luke chapter 1, verse 35. For it said within that verse, the Holy Spirit shall come upon Mary, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. A lot of people overlook that part. It said the Holy Spirit and the power of the highest. So the power of Yahuwah came upon Mary and implanted the seed in her. And her embryo provided the flesh and blood, which made him a descendant of David. Okay? And this is why he is the son of Yahuwah. For he is spirit that was joining the flesh. Okay? So in Luke chapter 1, verse 32, it is written that he shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Highest, and Yahuwah El shall give unto him the throne of his father David. So he is the descendant of David because Mary provided the flesh and blood. For Mary is a descendant of David. She is a seed of David. Okay? So this brings us to the end of this video. I know it's long, but it had to be done, my brothers and sisters. But when you read 1 John chapter 3, you will learn there are 3 witnesses in heaven and 3 in earth. And then when you read that chapter, you will learn the relationship between the two. For Yahuwah is the witness in heaven, and his spirit is the witness in the earth. And them two go hand in hand. Yahushua, who is the living word in heaven, is the witness there. And in the earth, the physical water is the witness in the earth. And those two go hand in hand. And then with the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, is the witness in heaven. And in the earth is the blood that was shed. Those two go hand in hand. So as we have discussed before about the Comforter, that the Comforter is Yahuwshua HaMashiyach. And Yahuwshua HaMashiyach is the representation of Yahuwah, the living word, and the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the fullness of Yah. A mystery that many do not understand. So as you are keeping a memorial of this feast of the living bread, which is called Passover, and this is day 3 of the 8-day feast. Remember to be aware of the leaven. Remember to be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. For now you have received the true understanding how the sheaf weight offering on Abib 16th represents the Messiah being the first fruits of the resurrection. For he was the firstborn from the dead. He is the second and last Adam. For he is in the true nature that Adam was in before he fell. For he's no longer in the covering of flesh. He's in the covering of light. And soon the 144,000 and the bride of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach shall receive the final step of regeneration. As for the nation of Israel, Yahuwah has something else in store for them. Read Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 33 to 44. And also read Ezekiel chapter 36. For their hearts are still hardened, and they're still not listening to him. My family, this concludes the lesson. I hope you enjoy the word. I hope you've been fed well. Again, my brothers and sisters, remember brother Eliasha. This is the month that his wife shall be sentenced now. For they was falsely accused and their children was taken away. Their testimony is on the channel and also be listed in the video description box. And I'm asking you to pray for this family and do not forget them. For they too are bearing their spiritual cross in this evil world. I'll close out with this prayer, my brothers and sisters. In the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach, I plead the blood upon this video and the links attached. I pray for your people, Father. I pray for those who want an understanding of this mystery about the sheaf weight offering on the Abib 16 and how it relates to the Messiah and what is yet to come. I pray that they receive this understanding. I pray that those who truly love you, that they will listen and harden their hearts. And I also pray for Israel. For when you bring them out into the wilderness, I know you're going to deal with them. You're going to deal with their hardened hearts. So I pray for them on that day. For all to know, only a remnant is going to make it. Only a remnant is going to pass the test. So I pray for you that you listen to Yahuwah. Keep your heart unhardened. Listen to the Father. Don't rebel against him. Don't be like our ancestors. And as for our enemies, Yahuwah, I pray that whatever they had planned against us, that it fall upon their heads and that they fall in their own pits. And I also pray for Brother Aliyasha's family. Protect them, Father. Protect his children, for they are in stranger homes. And if anything I have not prayed for in this prayer, Father, I ask that you fulfill it according to your will. In the name of Yahuswshua HaMashiyach, so be it. So my family, I hope you enjoyed this word. I know it's long and in detail, but it had to be, because I want you to understand the things that the Father has shown to me. I hope you understand these mysteries, and I hope that you understand that the sheaf weight offering is the Messiah, the second Adam. The sheaf of the first fruits of the barley harvest represents the firstborn of the resurrection. It represents the Messiah, who was the firstborn of the dead. I love you all, and Shalom. And remember to preach the gospel. Make sure the people receive salvation as written in Romans chapter 10, and baptize them in the name of Yahuwshua HaMashiyach. Shalom.